Okay, chapter 12, last paragraph of chapter 11. It is more than 10 years since your highness was lost in the woods at the north side of Narnia. 10 years, said the prince, drawing his hand across his face as if to rub away the past. Yes, I believe you, for now that I am myself, I can remember that enchanted life. Though while I was enchanted, I could not remember my true self. And now, fair friends, but wait. I hear their feet. Does it not sicken a man, that padding, woolly tread? Faugh! On the stairs. Lock the door, boy, or stay. I have a better thought than that. I will fool these earthmen if Aslan gives me the wit. Take your cue from me. He walked resolutely to the door and flung it wide open. Who's at the door? Chapter 12. The Queen of Underland. 2 earthmen entered, but instead of advancing into the room, they placed themselves one on each side of the door and bowed deeply. They were followed immediately by the last person whom anyone had expected or wished to see, the Lady of the Green Kirtle, the Queen of Underland. She stood dead still in the doorway, and they could see her eyes moving as she took in the whole situation. The 3 strangers, the silver chair destroyed, and the prince free, with his sword in his hand. She turned very white, but Jill thought it was a sort of whiteness that comes over people's faces, not when they are frightened, but when they are angry. For a moment the queen fixed her eyes on the prince, and there was murder in them. Then she seemed to change her mind. Leave us, she said to the 2 earthmen, and let none disturb us until I call, on pain of death. Okay, my voice. Need some water. Leave us, she said to the 2 earthmen, and let none disturb us until I call, on pain of death. The gnomes padded away obediently, and the witch queen shut and locked the door. How now, my lord prince, she said, has your nightly fit not yet come upon you? Or is it over so soon? Why stand you here unbound? Who are these aliens? And is it they who have destroyed the chair which was your only safety? All right. Prince Aurelian shivered as she spoke to him, and no wonder. It is not easy to throw off in half an hour an enchantment which has made one a slave for 10 years. Then, speaking with great effort, he said, Madam, there will be no more need of that chair, and you who have told me 100 times how deeply you pitied me for the sorceries by which I was bound, will doubtless hear with joy that they are now ended forever. There was, it seems, some small error in your lady's way of treating them. These, my true friends, have delivered me, for I am now in my right mind, and there are 2 things I will say to you. First, as for your ladyship's design of putting me at the head of an army of earthmen, so that I may break out into the overworld, and there, by main force, make myself king over some nation that never did me wrong, murdering their natural lords and holding their throne as a bloody and foreign tyrant. Now that I know myself, I do utterly abhor and renounce it as plain villainy. And second, I am the king's son of Narnia, Aurelian, the only child of Caspian, king tenth of that name, whom some call Caspian the seafarer. Therefore, madam, it is my purpose, as it is also my duty, to depart suddenly from your highness's court into my own country. Please it you to grant me and my friends safe conduct and a guide through your dark realm. Now the witch said nothing at all, but moved gently across the room, always keeping her face and eyes very steadily toward the prince. When she had come to a little ark set in the wall not far from the fireplace, she opened it and took out first a handful of green powder. This she threw on the fire. It did not blaze much, but a very sweet and drowsy smell came from it. And all through the conversation which followed, the smell grew stronger, and filled the room and made it harder to think. Secondly, she took out a musical instrument rather like a mandolin. She began to play it with her fingers, a steady, monotonous thrumming that you didn't notice after a few minutes. But the less you noticed it, the more it got into your brain and your blood. This also made it hard to think. After she had thrummed for a while, and the sweet smell was now strong, she began speaking in a sweet, quiet voice. Narnia? She said, Narnia? I have often heard of your lordship utter that name in your ravings. Dear prince, you are very sick. There is no land called Narnia. Yes, there is, though, ma'am, said Puddleglum. You see, I happen to have lived there all my life. Indeed, said the witch. Tell me, I pray you, where is that country? Up there, said Puddleglum stoutly, pointing overhead. I don't know exactly where. How, said the queen, with a kind, soft, musical laugh. Is there a country up there among the stones and mortar of the roof? No, said Puddleglum, struggling a little bit to get his breath. It is in the overworld. It's an overworld. And what or where, pray, is this? How do you call it? Overworld? Oh, don't be so silly, said Scrub, who was fighting hard against the enchantment of the sweet smell and the thrumming. As if you didn't know. It's up above, up where you can see the sky and the sun and the stars. Well, you've been there yourself. We met you there. I cry you mercy, little brother, laughed the witch. You couldn't have heard a lovelier laugh. I have no memory of that meeting, but we often meet our friends in strange places when we dream. And unless all dream the same dream alike, you must not ask them to remember it. Madam, said the prince sternly, I have already told you, your grace, that I am the king's son of Narnia. And shalt be, dear friend, said the witch in a soothing voice, as if she was humoring a child. Shalt be king of many imagined lands in thy fancies. We've been there too, snapped Jill. She was very angry because she could feel the enchantment getting hold of her every moment. But of course the very fact that she could still feel it, showed that she had not yet fully worked. It had not yet fully worked. And thou art queen of Narnia too, I doubt not, pretty one, said the witch in the same coaxing, half-mocking tone. I am nothing of the sort, said Jill, stamping her foot. We come from another world. Why, this is a prettier game than the last one, said the witch. Tell us, little maid, where is this other world? What ships and chariots go between it and ours? Of course, a lot of things darted into Jill's mind at once. Experiment House, Adela Pennyfeather, her own home, radio sets, cinemas, cars, aeroplanes, ration books, quays, but they seemed dim and far away. Thrum, thrum, thrum with the strings of the witch's instrument. Jill couldn't remember the names of the things in our world, and this time it didn't come into her head that she was being enchanted, for now the magic was in full effect. And of course, the more enchanted you get, the more certain you feel that you are not enchanted at all. Boy, ain't that the truth. She found herself saying, and at the moment it was a relief to say, no, I suppose that other world must all be a dream. Yes, it is all a dream, said the witch, always thrumming. Thrum, thrum, thrum. Yes, all a dream, said Jill. There never was such a world, said the witch. No, said Jill and Scrub, there never was such a world. There never was any world but mine, said the witch. There never was any world but yours, said they. Puddleglum was still fighting hard. I don't know rightly what you all mean by a world, he said, talking like a man who doesn't have enough air. But you can play that fiddle till your fingers drop off, and still you won't make me forget Narnia, the whole overworld too. We'll never see it again, I shouldn't wonder. You may have blotted it out and turned it dark like this, but for all I know, nothing more likely. But I know I was there once. I've seen the sky full of stars. I've seen the sun coming up out of the sea of a morning and sinking behind the mountains at night. And I've seen him up in the midday sky when I couldn't look at him for brightness. Puddleglum's words had a very rousing effect. The other three all breathed again and looked at one another like people newly awake. Why, there it is, cried the prince, of course. The blessing of Aslan upon this honest Marshwiggle. We have all been dreaming these last few minutes. How could we have forgotten it? Of course we've all seen the sun. By Jove, so have we, said Scrub. Good for you, Puddleglum. You're the only one of us with any sense, I do believe. Then came the witch's voice, cooing softly like a voice of a wood pigeon from the high elms in an old garden at 3 o'clock in the middle of a sleepy summer afternoon. And it said, what is the sun that you speak of? Do you mean anything by the word? Yes, we jolly well do, said Scrub. Can you tell me what it's like? Asked the witch. Thrum, thrum, thrum went the strings. Please it, your grace, said the prince very coldly and politely. You see that lamp? It is round and yellow, and gives light up to the whole room, and hangeth moreover up from the roof. Now that thing which we call the sun is like the lamp, only far greater and brighter. It giveth light to the whole overworld, and hangeth in the sky. Hangeth from what, my lord? Asked the witch, and then, while they were all thinking how to answer her, she added, with another of her soft silver laughs, you see, when you try to think out clearly what this sun must be, you cannot tell me. You only tell me it is like the lamp. Your sun is a dream. There is nothing in that dream which is not copied from the lamp. The lamp is the real thing. The sun is but a tale, a children's story. Yes, I see it now, said Jill in a heavy, hopeless tone. It must be so. And while she said this, it seemed to her to be very good sense. Slowly and gravely the witch repeated, there is no sun. They all said nothing. She repeated in a softer and deeper voice, there is no sun. After a pause and after a struggle in their minds, all four of them said together, "You are right, there is no sun." It was such a relief to say it, to give in and say it. There never was a sun. No, there never was a sun, said the prince and the Marshwiggle and the children. For the last few minutes, Jill had been feeling that there was something that she must remember at all cost, and now she did, but it was dreadfully hard to say it. She felt as if huge weights were laid upon her lips. At last, with an effort that seemed to take all the good out of her, she said, "There's Aslan." "Aslan?" said the witch, quickening ever so slightly the pace of her thrumming. "What a pretty name. What does it mean?" "He's the great lion who called us out of our own world," said Scrub, "and sent us into this to find the Prince Rilian." "What is a lion?" asked the witch. "Oh, hang it all," said Scrub. "Don't you know? How can we describe it to her? Have you ever seen a cat?" "Surely," said the queen. "I love cats." "Well, a lion is a little bit, only a little bit, mind you, like a huge cat, with a mane. At least he's not like a horse's mane, you know. It's more like a judge's wig, and it's yellow and terrifically strong." The witch shook her head. "I see," she said, "that we should do no better with your lion, as you call it, than we did with your son. You have seen lamps, and so you imagined a bigger and better lamp called the sun. You've seen cats, now you want a bigger and better cat, so you wanted to call it a lion. 'Tis a pretty make-believe, though, to say the truth. It would suit you better all if you were younger. And look how you can put nothing into your make-believe without copying it from the real world, this world of mine, which is the only world. But even you children are too old for such play. As for you, my lord prince, thou art a man full grown, and fie upon you. Are you not ashamed of such toys? Come, all of you, put away these childish tricks. I have work for you all. In the real world, there is no Narnia, no overworld, no sky, no sun, no Aslan. And now to bed, all. Let us begin a wiser life tomorrow, but first to bed, to sleep. Deep sleep, soft pillows, sleep without foolish dreams." The prince and the two children were standing with their heads hung down, their cheeks flushed, their eyes half closed, and strength all gone from them. The enchantment almost complete. But Puddleglum, desperately gathering all his strength, walked over to the fire, then did a very brave thing. He knew it wouldn't hurt him quite as much as it would hurt a human, for his feet, which were bare, were webbed and hard and cold-blooded like a duck's. But he knew it would hurt him badly enough, and so it did. With his bare foot he stomped on the fire, grinding a large part of it into ashes on the flat hearth. And three things happened at once. First, the sweet heavy smell grew very much less, for though the whole fire had not been put out, a good bit of it had, and what remained smelled very largely like burnt marshwiggle, which is not a smell at all, which is not at all an enchanting smell. This instantly made everyone's brain far clearer. The prince and the children held up their heads again and opened their eyes. Secondly, the witch, in a loud, terrible voice, utterly different from all the sweet tones she had been using up till now, called out, "What are you doing? Dare to touch my fire again, mud filth, and I'll turn the blood to fire inside your veins." Thirdly, the pain itself made Puddleglum's head for a moment perfectly clear, and he knew exactly what he really thought. There was nothing like a good shock of pain for dissolving certain kinds of magic. "One word, ma'am," he said, coming back from the fire, limping because of the pain. "One word." "All you've been saying is quite right, I shouldn't wonder. I'm a chap who always likes to know the worst and then put the best face on it I can. So I won't deny any of what you said, but there's one thing more to be said. Even so, suppose we have only dreamed, or made up all those things, trees and grass and sun and moon and stars and Aslan himself. Suppose we have. Then all I can say is that in that case, the made-up things seem a good deal more important than the real ones. Suppose this black pit of a kingdom of yours is the only world. Well, it strikes me as a pretty poor one. And that's a funny thing when you come to think of it. We're just babies making up a game, if you're right. But four babies playing a game can make a play world which licks your real world hollow. That's why I'm going to stand by the play world. I'm on Aslan's side, even if there isn't any Aslan to lead it. I'm going to live as like a Narnian as I can, even if there isn't any Narnia. So thanking you kindly for our supper. If these two gentlemen and this young lady are ready, we're going to leaving your court at once, and setting out in the dark to spend our lives looking for Overland. Not that our lives will be very long, I should think, but there's a small loss if the world's as dull a place as you say it is." "Oh, hurrah, good old Puddleglum," cried Scrubbin and Jill, but the prince shouted suddenly, "Where? Look to the witch." When they did, their hair nearly stood on end. The instrument dropped from her hands, her arms appeared to be fastened to her sides, her legs were intertwined with each other, and her feet had disappeared. The long green train of her skirt thickened and grew solid, and seemed all at once to be all one piece with the writhing green pillar of her interlocked legs. And that writhing green pillar was curving and swaying, as if no joints or else all were joints. Her head was thrown far back, and while her nose grew longer and longer, every other part of her face seemed to disappear, except her eyes. Huge flaming eyes they were now, without brows or lashes. All this takes time to write down. It happened so quickly that there was only just time to see it. Long before there was no time to do anything, the change was complete, and the great serpent which the witch had become, green as poison, thick as Jill's waist, and had flung 2 or 3 coils of its loathsome body around the prince's legs. Quick as lightning, another great loop darted around, intending to pinion his sword arm down to its side, but the prince was just in time. He raised his arms and got them clear. The living knot closed only around his chest, ready to crack his ribs like firewood when it grew tight. The prince caught the creature's neck in his left hand, trying to squeeze it until it choked. This held its face, if you could call it a face, about 5 inches from his own. The forked tongue flicked horribly in and out, but could not reach him. With his right hand he drew back his sword, and for the strongest blow he could give. Meanwhile, Scrub and Puddleglum had drawn their weapons and rushed to his aid. All 3 blows fell at once. Scrub's, which did not even pierce the scales and did no good on the body of the snake below the prince's hands, but the prince's own blow and Puddleglum's both on its neck. Even that did not quite kill it, although it began to loosen its hold on Rillian's legs and chest. With repeated blows they hacked off its head. The horrible thing went on coiling and moving like a bit of wire long after it had died. And the floor, as you may imagine, was a nasty mess. The prince, when he had a breath, said, "Gentlemen, I thank you." Then the 3 conquerors stood staring at one another and panting without another word. For a long time Jill had wisely sat down. Jill had wisely sat down and was keeping quiet. She was saying to herself, "I do hope I don't faint, or blub, or do anything idiotic." "My royal mother is avenged," said Rillian presently. "This is undoubtedly the same worm that I pursued in vain by the fountain in the forest in Narnia, so many years ago. All these years I have been the slave of my mother's slayer. Yet I am glad, gentlemen, that the foul witch took to her serpent form at the last. It would not have suited well either with my heart or with my honor to have slain a woman. But look to the lady," he meant Jill. "I'm all right," she said. "Thanks." "Damsel," said the prince, bowing to her, "you are of a high courage, and therefore I doubt not you come of noble blood in your own world. But come, friends, there is some wine left. Let us refresh ourselves, and each pledge his fellows after that to our plans." "A jolly good idea, sir," said Scrub. Next chapter, chapter 13, is Underland Without the Queen. I'll read it. My voice is better and my brain is better. All right. So, there we go. Quite a few years ago, I wrote an article. I titled it, "We Need More Puddleglums." We need people who are putting a bold face on things and who are constantly seeing, I guess you'd say, the worst that could happen. Or the giants have invaded. What's happened? There's been a fire, the flood, tornado. But when push comes to shove, they're able to see reality, and at the cause of it, even if it causes them pain, are able to see the truth of the situation in life, and are willing to do something to change that situation and to make it turn out for the good. So he stomped on the fire. He put out the chemicals, the powder that was in the fire, and I love the saying. And he says, "I'm going to be for Aslan, even if there is no Aslan. I'm going to live like a Narnian, even if there is not a Narnia." So very cool. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, I'll let y'all go. Thank you. Bye-bye. And I hope my grandkids listen to this someday. Hallelujah. Bye-bye.